Good morning, everyone. Today is Friday, and because it is Friday, I thought that we could start off today with a joke. So here is the joke. How do you know that an ocean is friendly? Think about it. How do you know an ocean is friendly? Give you a little more time to think about the answer. Alright, here it is. Because it waves. I hope you got it. I hope you enjoyed it. I haven't been able to tell you guys jokes in a long time, so I miss doing that, and I hope you guys enjoyed the joke for today. If you guys have any jokes that you would like to share with me, feel free to message me some jokes, or if you would like to share a joke in the comments below, I would really appreciate it. But today, we are going to finish Fantastic Mr. Fox, so we are going to read the last 2 chapters today. So go ahead, grab your book, and we will start reading chapter 17, which is on page 72. Chapter 17 is called The Great Feast. Back in the tunnel, they paused so that Mr. Fox could brick up the hole in the wall. He was humming to himself as he put the bricks back in place. "I can still taste that glorious cider," he said. "What an impudent fellow Rat is." "He has bad manners," Badger said. "All rats have bad manners. I've never met a polite rat yet." "And he drinks too much," said Mr. Fox, putting the last brick in place. "There we are. Now, home to the feast." They grabbed their jars of cider, and off they went. Mr. Fox was in front. The smallest fox came next, and Badger last. Along the tunnel they flew, past the turning that led to Bunce's mighty storehouse, past Boggis's chicken house number 1, and then up the long home stretch towards the place where they knew Mrs. Fox would be waiting. "Keep it up, my darlings," shouted Mr. Fox. "We'll soon be there. Think what's waiting for us at the other end. And just think what we're bringing home with us in these jars. That ought to cheer up poor Mrs. Fox." Mr. Fox sang a little song as he ran. "Home again, swiftly I glide, back to my beautiful bride. She'll not feel so rotten, as soon as she's gotten some cider inside her inside." Then Badger joined in. "Oh, poor Mrs. Badger," he cried. "So hungry she very near died. But she'll not feel so hollow, if only she'll swallow some cider inside her inside." They were still singing as they rounded the final corner and burst in upon the most wonderful and amazing sight any of them had ever seen. The feast was just beginning. A large dining room had been hollowed out of the earth, and in the middle of it, seated around a huge table, were no less than 29 animals. They were Mrs. Fox and 3 small foxes, Mrs. Badger and 3 small badgers, Mole and Mrs. Mole and 4 small moles, Rabbit and Mrs. Rabbit and 5 small rabbits, Weasel and Mrs. Weasel and 6 small weasels. The table was covered with chickens and ducks and geese and hams and bacon, and everyone was tucking into the lovely food. "My darling," cried Mrs. Fox, jumping up and hugging Mr. Fox. "We couldn't wait. Please forgive us." Then she hugged the smallest fox of all, and Mrs. Badger hugged Badger, and everyone hugged everyone else. Amid shouts of joy, the great jars of cider were placed upon the table, and Mr. Fox and Badger and the smallest fox sat down with the others. You must remember, no one had eaten a thing for several days. They were ravenous, so for a while there were no conversation at all. There was only the sound of crunching and chewing as the animals attacked the succulent food. At last Badger stood up. He raised his glass of cider and called out, "A toast! I want you all to stand and drink a toast to our dear friend who has saved our lives this day. Mr. Fox! To Mr. Fox, they all shouted, standing up and raising their glasses. To Mr. Fox, long may he live. Then Mrs. Fox got shyly to her feet and said, I don't want to make a speech. I just want to say one thing, and it is this. My husband is a fantastic fox. Everyone clapped and cheered. Then Mr. Fox himself stood up. This delicious meal, he began. Then he stopped. In the silence that followed, he let fly a tremendous belch. There was laughter and more clapping. This delicious meal, my friends, he went on, is by courtesy of Messrs. Boggis, Bunce, and Bean. More cheering and laughter. And I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. He let fly another colossal belch. Better out than in, said Badger. Thank you, said Mr. Fox, grinning hugely. But now, my friends, let us be serious. Let us think of tomorrow and the next day and the days after that. If we go out, we will be killed, right? Right, they shouted. We'll be shot before we've gone a yard, said Badger. Exactly, said Mr. Fox. But who wants to go out anyway? Let me ask you that. We are all diggers, every one of us. We hate the outside. The outside is full of enemies. We only go out because we have to get food for our families. But now, my friends, we have an entirely new setup. We have a safe tunnel leading to 3 of the finest stores in the world. We do indeed, said Badger. I've seen 'em. And you know what this means, said Mr. Fox. It means that none of us need ever go out into the open again. There was a buzz of excitement around the table. I therefore invite you all, Mr. Fox went on, to stay here with me forever. Forever, they cried. My goodness, how marvelous! And Rabbit said to Mrs. Rabbit, My dear, just think. We're never going to be shot at again in our lives. We will make, said Mr. Fox, a little underground village, with streets and houses on each side, separate houses for badgers and moles and rabbits and weasels and foxes. And every day I will go shopping for you all, and every day we will eat like kings. The cheering that followed the speech went on for many minutes. All right. Before we read the last chapter, there was a word. If you want to go back to page 76, so this is page 76, there's the word ravenous. Now I want you to try hard to see if you can come up with the definition of ravenous. I'll read it as it is in the text. You must remember no one had eaten a thing for several days. They were ravenous. So for a while there was no conversation at all. So here is the word ravenous. Take a little bit of time to think if you can come up with a definition for ravenous. Use your context clues, see how it's used in the text on page 76, it's the second paragraph, and see if you can use your context clues to come up with the definition of this word. I'll give you a little time to think about it. Give you a few more seconds to think about this word, then I'll go ahead and discuss it with you. Alright, so the word ravenous means extremely hungry. So if we replace the word ravenous with extremely hungry, it should fit the text surrounding that word. So the second paragraph of page 76 goes like this. You must remember no one had eaten a thing for several days. They were extremely hungry, or they were ravenous. So for a while, there was no conversation at all. And there we go. So that is the word ravenous. So next time you guys are extremely hungry, maybe you could say, Mom, Dad, Grandma, I am ravenous, which means you're extremely hungry. All right, let's go ahead and finish the last chapter, which is chapter 18. It's on page 80, and it is titled, Still Waiting. Outside the fox's hole, Baucis and Bunce and Bean sat beside their tents with their guns on their laps. It was beginning to rain. Water was trickling down the necks of the three men and into their shoes. He won't stay down there much longer now, Baucis said. The brute must be famished, Bunce said. That's right, Bean said. He'll be making a dash for it any moment. Keep your guns handy. They sat there by the hole, waiting for the fox to come out. And so far as I know, they are still waiting. And that is the end to Fantastic Mr. Fox. I hope you guys enjoyed this story as much as I have. I thought it was very interesting, and it was very entertaining, and it was fun to see what Mr. Fox did with the farmers to try to get his food. So the last question that you will fill out in your packet is question 21. This might take a little bit more time and effort than the questions that you have done previously, but I have full confidence that you're going to be able to do this. So let's go over number 21. Number 21 says, the book is titled Fantastic Mr. Fox. Do you believe that Mr. Fox was fantastic? Convince your reader that he was or was not by writing a paragraph using contextual evidence to support your opinion. So what you're going to do with this last question is you are going to explain if you believe that Mr. Fox was fantastic. And when it says convince your reader, that means whoever would read your paragraph. So let's say if it was Mrs. Pergram or I, maybe it's your parents, your grandparents, your siblings, whoever you want to read this, try to convince your reader. So it's going to be a little persuasive because you're wanting them to agree with what you're saying, why he was or was not fantastic. So in your paragraph, you're going to need first complete sentences. All right, we've practiced paragraphs throughout this year. And the first thing you're going to need is complete sentences. So make sure that you have capital letters, you have punctuation. Remember, when you start a paragraph, you do the 2 finger spaces for indent. It's a great way to practice right now. You also want to make sure that you have, let me finish writing it on my board, textual evidence. So you want to make sure that you have evidence from your text that agrees with why you believe Mr. Fox was or was not fantastic. So that also means that you will need page numbers. Because I need to know, or whoever your reader is, needs to know where you got that evidence from. And then I would be able to go back, if I have the book, I would be able to go back and say, oh, I can see why they believe Mr. Fox was fantastic or why he wasn't fantastic, because I was able to see where the evidence was as well. All right, so make sure with your paragraph, try to have at least 4 sentences. That would be a good solid paragraph. If you like to do an introduction, so maybe you could say, here are reasons why I think Mr. Fox is fantastic. Or here are reasons why I do not think Mr. Fox is fantastic. And then try to give us 2 to 3 reasons why you think he is fantastic or not fantastic. So here is an example. Let's say, and Miss Kilgore was writing a paragraph about this. My first sentence would say, I believe that Mr. Fox was fantastic. Introduction sentence. One reason I think he is fantastic is because he held a feast for his friends. Then what I would do is go back in the text and I would say on page maybe 76 is where they talk about the feast. So I could say where maybe when Badger stood up and gave cheers to Mr. Fox, or when it said, even when Mrs. Fox called her husband fantastic during the feast. That could be good evidence that you could use to explain why he's fantastic. And then I would give one more reason, and then to conclude, I would say, here are reasons why Mr. Fox is fantastic, or here are reasons why Mr. Fox is not fantastic, depending on where you are taking your paragraph. Alright, if you have any questions, please ask them. Mrs. Pergram or myself will try to get back as quickly as we can. And just a reminder that questions 12 and 13 in your packet are due for grades. So if you or your parents are able to upload a picture of that, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you have any questions about that, just message Mrs. Pergram or I as well. So you guys enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend.